Harvey Russell. I'm the new math science teacher.
The football coach?
I'm milling about with Vinessa Shaw. She is star of 12 Mighty Orphans. Hi.
Hi.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
As you can see, my backdrop is all about football, which I know nothing.
I know maybe just a little more than you. That's it.
Did you want to delve more into football when you knew you were going to be doing this film?
Actually, I couldn't do it much before doing this movie. I actually found out about the role only 2 days before arriving. I was the last cast in the movie. So I basically could dive in as much as I could. I actually had to do a monologue 2 days, like a really long monologue 2 days after arriving. And was just so happy though, because Luke had asked me to do this movie. And so I had a note, a little tiny note attached to the script that I was reading. And so I just was thinking, okay, Luke and I have wanted to work for 10 years. So I'm just going to say yes. And basically said yes without even reading it, and then found it was a football movie that was, a true story and takes place in Texas. We're going to shoot in Texas and Fort Worth, where it all took place, and it's a local darling, this whole story. And so I just felt like I have to do this. And, all the themes resonated with me as a person, like, the never give up spirit, and, basically turning poison into medicine, turning everything around so that you can have hope again. So it happens to be a football movie, but I feel like the themes are more relatable to anyone, whether you like football or not.
Well, the woman that you portray, I think she's from the Depression era. So that must have been a little hard for you to get a hold of all those customs and such.
Well, the first part I ever did in Hollywood was a girl from the Depression era, the Dust Bowl era. And I was 14, playing a girl who was migrating west from Kansas. And
what film was that?
It was called The Long Road Home with Mark Harmon and Lee Purcell. It was a movie of the week, they called it.
Oh, yeah.
So it was, kind of a Grapes of Wrath story. And so I learned a lot about what happened back then, because I met someone from Kansas who happened to be in California at the time, had no teeth, lived through the Depression era, told me everything. So I learned a lot from him. And I also learned a lot from my grandmother, who was a young girl during the Depression. And, not unlike this story, she had cousins living with her, friends that were not real family, but it basically became family. And, taught me about like how hard it was back then. And, her life is an example of what came from that. She just basically, they went from rags to riches. And that was a lot of people's stories back then. And the story of the Mighty Mites and the girls involved in the Masonic home as well, the orphans as well, all went on to have a future. And that's kind of like my grandmother. So I did learn about it before having to jump into this role, years prior. So it's kind of maybe ingrained in the back of my head.
Yeah, you kind of came full circle in a way. I want to talk to you about this incredible cast of men surrounding you. You said you've wanted to work with Luke Wilson for 10 years. Then you've got Martin Sheen. Then you've got Robert Duvall, who I danced with, by the way, and that's another story.
I love it.
And on top of all that, Treat Williams came in.
Yeah, I wasn't there when he was working, but yes, I know. The one I was, working with the most or closest to was Martin. And my goodness, is he just a delight on set. I had to bring my 1.5-year-old at the time with me. And, he was kind of like, where are we? Because again, it was so sudden that I had to go to Texas. And so, he'd come into the makeup trailer with me, and Martin would sing songs to him. And he'd sing like, the Grand Old Duke of York just be so funny, and then do a whole performance and like dance around. So he was just delightful. And I, obviously saw him in this movie, and he's just so great. His character is so spot on, and he played it so well, like a man who has, probably dealt with a lot of pain, but has risen above it.
And talk about legends. You worked with some incredible directing legends. Eyes Wide Shut was your very first film, like right out of, like while you were in college, right?
Yes, while I was in college, I did that movie. I'd actually gotten the news, having just finished my final and falling asleep after being up all night at 10 a.m., finally falling asleep. People calling me, ringing my dorm room phone off the hook. Finally, I answer it because my mom is calling, going, back then you had the machines, you could hear it. And she's calling the machine, pick up the phone, Vinessa. And so I pick it up, and she told me I got the part. And then I went back to sleep and thought it was a dream. Woke up being so confused that I really get a part in a Stanley Kubrick movie? And the rest is history. And I learned so much from him, and he really became my mentor in acting, and just changed my life. I thought at the time, I was going to school to really discover something else. And basically he taught me to continue in acting, and that I was good and I should continue. And
did you realize then at the time that this was really a big deal? Like Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman. I mean, did it dawn on you?
I had just seen a Kubrick movie before getting the role as well. And, I had become a huge fan of Kubrick, and I'm still so young. I was only 20, just learning about film. But Tom Cruise, I watched growing up, like in Cocktail, Top Gun, like those were my movies I loved watching of his. And Nicole Kidman, I'd just seen her in the first movie, I'm forgetting the name right now. So her, as well as, the racing movie they did. And I just completely was well aware of what I was getting into. That didn't help my nerves at all. So when I arrived and I finally met Stanley Kubrick, who I was talking to about my life, and we would just chat for 3 or 4 days and then go home, I just was like, I'm just talking to the most amazing guy, as well as the most intelligent people I'd ever spoken with in my young age, who really wanted to get to know me before working with me. And being a child actress beforehand, they just want to make sure you're saying your lines right, and that's it, So that fact that he wanted to get to know me and get information about my childhood and all of these thoughts from me, like, what I, thought about life, essentially, was amazing. And he, then enters Tom Cruise during one of these meetings, and I'm like,
I had posters of him, Vinessa, like all over my walls.
Oh, so did? Nice.
Oh my God,
Yeah, I literally don't know if I said this out loud or when he reached out and said, hello, I'm Tom Cruise. I'm not sure if it was in my brain or if I said out loud, but I went, yeah, no kidding. Just the more beautiful in person. Like, I was like, how does someone be so magnetic on screen and look even better in person? Only Tom Cruise. So, and then working with him was incredible too. He has such a good work ethic and is polite and kind to everyone around him. So it was great to see that people you admire actually really care about their craft and care about you.
Yeah. And then of course, here you are with Luke Wilson, who I love and adore as well. So
yes. He is so great and gracious.
So you said that you had an opportunity to dance with Luke in this movie.
Yeah. A couple of times.
Yeah. Did you dance with Robert Duvall?
Okay, now you have to share because you're setting it up like that. What did you dance with Robert Duvall in?
So he does the cha-cha like nobody's business.
Really?
And yes.
Are you kidding?
No.
Very good information.
Yeah, I was a press junket like way back when we were actually being flown to places, and
right.
we had a big party afterwards and everybody got a chance to cha-cha with Robert Duvall.
No way. He would just say your turn and your turn and your turn.
Yes, it was like a dream.
Oh, so cool. Do you know how to cha-cha well?
A little. He taught me, you know, he was so gracious. He just like moved you through it that you just didn't even have to know anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good dancer for you, huh?
Oh yeah. So how is Luke as a dancer? Is my question.
He's great. He's a natural. He kind of also thinks too much about it though, I have to say. I told him, don't worry about it, just go, you know. So obviously we have to also dance in the time period as well, you know. And it's, of course, the second scene that you see us dancing is just swaying. So that's super easy. But I think it's a nice little note in the movie to have them dancing because, you know, they're obviously celebrating this life that they have together and celebrating the victories they're having at this home. And, you know, that's basically what people did. They didn't have TV, so they'd sit around and listen to the radio and listen to radio shows, and then music would come on and they would dance, you know. So I feel like that was kind of a nice nod to the era, but also the relationship.
In a way, Vinessa, is there any part of that time that you would like to live in now and experience now?
You know, I, as a child, was always envious of my mom because she lived in the 60s, and like, you saw the Beatles in person, you know, oh my God, you saw, because she grew up in Northern California. So they were all there, Jimi Hendrix, all the, you know, the Janis Joplin. So when I was really getting into music as a teenager, I was just so envious of her, and I stole all of her little posters she would get at the Fillmore Auditorium in San Francisco. And I would look at it and stare at it. And I was like, Cream and Jimi Hendrix were playing the same night, and then Janis Joplin the next night. Like, I just couldn't believe it. And she's like, yeah, we would just sit on the floor, eat apples. And I'm like, yeah, that's a time when you could eat apples and not worry if they're poisonous or something, like somebody slipped something into them. And, you know, the same for my dad. My dad grew up on the West Coast. Surf culture was just starting. I'm like, you met like the original surfers of California? Like, you know, you probably know them, but he named all of them. And so it was, I always envied them for living in the 60s, but really, you know, there's no time like the present. We're meant to live where we're meant to live and the time we're meant to live. And now I, as an actor, I can just go back in time whenever I want. So that's the cool part of it.
This is so true. Well, thank you, Vinessa, so much for joining me.
Thank you, Robin. It was lovely talking with you.
Same here. Have a great day. See you soon.
Too. See you soon. Bye.
I look at you boys and I can honestly say I'm proud to be an orphan. And you'll feel the same way if you can believe in yourselves and believe in each other.
Always news. Always refreshing. Always candid. Always milling about. Robin Milling delivers what celebrities are saying to you.